I was on a call this morning with a Viet guy. He says, "Hey, you still, you're doing the vetting service. I want to build a company and I want to hire in-house some designers, some content marketers." And so it got me thinking about our conversation this morning. And there's going to be a lot of these people. Alex and I are doing that VidQ Hustle project, as you know, and we just finished a teaser. I'll send it over to you after this conversation. But there are a lot of these VidQ people that are looking to hire remotely, and now that they know that they can. It's not that they don't know, but since we're becoming more visible, a lot of them are reaching out to Alex and I and saying, "Hey, I want to hire remote, but I don't want to hire Filipinos and Indians and South Americans. I want to hire my own people." And so I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for us to refer people within your community to some remote work.
For sure. For sure. That's amazing. I'm very excited. You know that I'm running a school to teach people how to do design UI UX.
Exactly.
So it's amazing that we can connect with employers and see how we can introduce people to your matching programs. And it's very
Absolutely.
good that Vietnamese American or overseas Vietnamese who want to hire their own people. Yeah.
A lot of them do. You'd be surprised. We have a guy that we're going to release a teaser video today. The full video comes out tomorrow, but he's already hired 2 people from the community. And he's sent us a text saying that, well, I'm going to hire a 3rd one. You guys are great. He hired a personal assistant. He hired a accounting head for his accounting team. The guy apparently was so good that he ended up hiring this guy to be the team leader. And then he wants to hire an additional person. So and it gives him a lot of joy, obviously, because a lot of them feel blessed that they were able to start a new life, chase the American dream, become successful, and one way for them to give back is to hire their own people, obviously, right? So so I think with this can be a lot of opportunities for your designers in your school in the coming months and years, hopefully. That's my belief. All right, so should we get the ball rolling, guys?
Yeah, I think we should. I think, Sandra, maybe for the sake of me, for the sake of the viewer, the listener, could you spend maybe a minute or 2 just telling us a bit about your background and what it is that you do?
Yeah. So hey, my name is Sandra. I'm a UI UX designer for almost the last 10 years. I was very fortunate to work with some big clients like Coca-Cola, Microsoft Ventures, Samsung's, and some notable startups. In the space. Now I'm running a design school that teach people how to do UI UX. And it's my pleasure to be here today.
Thanks for coming on.
Nice. So this just from the get-go, let me ask you a question. Could you share a bit about your journey into UI UX design? I mean, what inspired you to choose this field specifically?
This is funny how I did this, or how I got into this. I actually went to school for law school. I did very well. I graduated to the top of my class, met with President Obama, and spoke with United Nations about legal and women development. And then I went to practice law for a year, and I didn't like it. The hours was very long, and it was very unpredictable. You don't have the control of the jobs. So I was looking around, and I went out on a date with a programmers, and we talked about tech industry, and then he's like, maybe you could do this too. And so I looked into it. I learned how to program, and then I learned to design, and then I stick to design. So sometimes I was like, I tease people that, hey, I got into the industry because somebody I dated.
It could be worse, right?
Yeah.
Now, I didn't know your background. So originally was as a programmer. We've known each other for at least a decade, and this is the first time. Actually, I've heard your beginning story of how you got into design. I didn't know that you were a lawyer. I'm sorry. Maybe I should have known that about you, over the past decade, but I didn't. So from lawyer to programming, and then from there the switch into designing. Wow.
Yeah, but I'm not very good. I'm not a very good programmer. Just I understand the concept and get by. Thanks for the compliment of. I call myself like a devil in many things, a Renaissance woman, but still figuring out the whole way.
What attracted you, Sandra, to design?
Was that I think it was very interesting to see. I was very much into marketing, so to pay for my bill to become a programmer, I actually was a marketer for a while. So I was very much into the psychology of the sellings. I bought books about marketings, and marketing and design is very close. You know, it's a gateway drug to design, and there was this like strong desire to build something, to make something, right? And then to be actually be a maker. And there was a time I read a very popular books. I think it's called The Maker by Pieter Levers, and then it talk about the joy of being a maker. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna learn building skill. And for me, it's design. You know, I keep posting about design, and I got jobs here and there, designing website and designing things, and it's just that naturally from there. Yeah.
And how long did it take you to transition, you know, all the way from working with law, being a lawyer, to doing what you do now? I mean, we're talking about some pretty complex skill set required to make that transition, right? Did you do that like that, or did it take you several years, or how long are we talking about?
It's not very straightforward like that. It was not very straightforward path to design like that. It's more like, oh, I try to do a bunch of projects with friends, and I do the design work on that project. So for example, we have like a failed e-commerce. I actually joined a Norwegian company, and then we tried to do e-commerce, and then I did the design of the landing page. So it's like on and off, you know, like it's not so also like I don't know how long it took. Very long. It took very long, but I think that I quit law around 2015, but it took me around 2 years to really get a set of foot in the design work. So 2017. So 2 years of really like trying a lot of small projects, small client, doing a lot of things to make this thing. And by 2017, 2017, I got really like a good jobs in the tech space, and I was like, okay, this is the point of like, this is a catalyst. Yeah.
Did you drop law everything related to your law career like right away, or was it kind of you were still practicing law but also dabbing in design? Or
I dropped everything. I dropped everything in 2015, and I learned programming and design and marketing at the same time. So it's like it's a situation of like fuck around, f around, and you figure it out.
Yeah.
So it's not very clear, straightforward at all. It looked like a smart move in the hindsight, but it's more like I f around and I fight.
I'm sure your very traditional Hanoian parents were not so happy with their lawyer daughter, you know.
Yeah. No, this is actually very funny. My mother actually was a fashion designer, so I'm, you know, when I went out and networking and tried to explain it to people, I never tell them the long story. I think this is the first time I told somebody the long version of how I got into design. But you know, I use like my mother former fashion design career as like, hey, it's running the family. We did it, but it's not further from the truth. It's a lot of like trial and error and a lot of practice. Yeah.
But the reason why you made the transition to begin with, I think I heard you say it's a matter of being able to control your own life and your own work hours. So this was the main reason why you made the transition to begin with. Like why did you make such a, you know, what do you call it? It's a pretty radical choice, right? To take one entire type of career and then say, okay, I'm just gonna leave that behind and change entirely. So something must have been really wrong with being a lawyer compared to what you do now, where it's all great since you make that transition so harshly, right?
Yeah. Also, like I'm reading a book, so I was reading Naval Ravikant, so I was much into like a Tim Ferriss podcast reading and Naval Ravikant Silicon Valley's material reading career, and I was reading about this concept called permissionless. So, like, if you want to be wealthy in life, you need to find career that have a very least permission to grow in. And when I was practicing law, it feel like everything is permission. Like it's all red tapes and everything was like paperwork, and then wait for a very long time the law to change. Or even if you have like a foreign degree, you need to commit to one country law before you come. You don't have much hour. I remember I tried to book a ticket for my TED holiday, and then my partner told me that I could not book anything. I could not book anything until the last minute because they want to keep me around the office. And the office have a very bad tech stack, and I keep proposing everybody to upgrade the tech stack because I was very techy. I was very geeky, so I was one of the first reader of like Vietnam PC magazine. I was very active in that community, and then got gifts, and I got like prize from like solving puzzles in the PC magazines when I was in high school. And so I saw everything. Like I keep proposing to my partners like, hey, our building system was too outdated. Can we upgrade to something? I actually proposed a company to do cloud way before cloud was a thing. And it's fall under deaf ear because lawyers are probably the biggest dinosaur in all the industry. And then so I messed around with LinkedIn, and because I was worrying about my career, it feel like it hitting nowhere. Like people using this site from like the 90s, and then the tech support guy was in Cambodia, and then very slow. So back then, LinkedIn had this analytics feature showing that the biggest law firm in the world was hiring more programmers than lawyers.
Interesting.
So I was like, this is the catalyst. This is where I should move to. And meeting the guy from Tinder, the Norwegian guy from Tinder, is just like like it's like a nice a nice cupcake to the mix, because he was having like 5 weeks of vacation per year, whereas like I can't even control my big holiday.
Did you say a Norwegian guy?
Yeah, Norwegian guy.
Yeah. 5 weeks of holiday. That sounds about right.
Yeah, that's how it is here in Scandinavia.
Yeah.
Because of unions primarily, right? So one other question. So again, related to this transition of yours, what would you say in general are some or perhaps the most important types of knowledge or skills required if you want to move into a career as a UI UX designer? So for all of the listeners out there, some from our community, some aspiring to be part of your community, they might be thinking, so where should I start in terms of skill acquisition? And what do you think?
This has actually become very much more interesting because you have AI now, right? So a lot of things got automated. So I think that and in the toolbox of the designer, you have so many tools. Basically, you have so many things to play around with. I think the most important skill is know when to use which tool, because now you have like so many things, right? And you have like each tool for each jobs, right? Even you have like you have so many things in your toolbox. You can actually build synthetics user research with AI input now. So right now know which tool to use, but also know the limitation of it, because like a synthetic user research is very fast, very satisfying at first, but it cannot replace real conversation with user. So it is good as an icebreaker, right? And it's good for like somebody who don't know where to start, who don't have a budget yet.
You talk about synthesis? Is that what it's called?
The
AI what do you call it? AI avatar company? Is that what you're referring to?
Oh no, I'm referring to user persona. So user persona is like customer profile.
Yeah.
Done in design to inform the design decision. So a lot of team now like want to use like the AI generated market research or design research, right? But it can't replace a conversation with real-time user. So knowing tools, how to use them, but also know the limitation of them is important. So work around AI tools is important, and I think the other important is like you need to have like grit. I think grit is important. Grit, yeah.
Yeah.
Because a lot can go wrong, and then you have like you have it so many. You can have so many issues on the jobs, right? You know, take long time to get. It's the tech market now is very volatile, right? It's very volatile right now. So it's came into pause. Sometimes you have a good months, a lot of people hiring, and then you have a bad months, nobody hired at all. So how like how to keep building on your skill set even though you don't have like that immediate feedback. So yeah, delay gratification is important.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, you mentioned the rise of AI and all of these tools that have arisen during, I mean, even just within the last few months. I mean, we can hear now that we're kind of struggling to hear what are the exact tools that you're mentioning, because there are so many tools that we think we're pretty much up to date, but constantly new tools appear out of nowhere. So would you say that this in total has made your life easier or harder, right? Because this is also lowers the barriers to entry. It makes for more competition. There are a lot of amateurs out there now who, if they can grasp just one or two of these tools, then suddenly they're in business, right? But what do you think? Easier or harder in total?
It go both ways. There's some part it's got easier. Like I love Claude AI, I love AI, I love ChatGPT. They are such a good co-thinkers, right? So on the day when you don't have like an office, you don't have like somebody to bounce idea with, they are such a good co-thinker. They are very good co-thinkers. They make life much easier. They show you how to get the job done, even though sometimes you don't feel like it. So this part that easier, the part that go way harder. A lot of people say that when Figma come out, like the main UI tools come out with like an AI generation UI tool, it's gonna be a very interesting period of market for UI designer. But I always see this happen is that if the tunes become very prolific after a while and then people don't invest in then visual design skill, then there is a gap for very good visual designer. So like if after AI make everybody lazy, then the one who can maintain and then he still have a good skill and good craft stand out from the rest. So it's not a linear path like black and white at all. It just you need to manage your own career. And also like when you work if you work for a bank or like a B2B startup, the use case and the design case got very complicated. And AI could not solve it all, right? You need to listen to every customer or the use case or the edge case. AI can't do it. Like you know what I mean? It's like and then what happened is that you might have like some product manager or PO know how to prompt, and then they prompt something and they think that it's good enough. But then I think AI is very good at giving you false competence.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you think you master it, but it's not. So I try AI with copywriting, and it looked very good, but it's can't compare to the work of the best copywriter. And what happened is that the perception of the market gonna be like, oh, why do I have to pay for this copywriter this much? Because from AI to do the same thing. And I say, sure, if you want like the mediocre result, you want the average result. But if you want the best outcome, you've seen that high, go to the best craft, craftsmen and craft women out there. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that you found a lot of passion in marketing and interested in marketing. Would you say that somebody who wants to be a good designer currently in this market also needs to invest time and become a great marketer? Because the two are very intertwined.
I think a good designer always know how to sell themselves. It's much more like I have like a mentor who always appear in a certain attires. Like it's most updated designer clothes and then shoes. I totally get that. I never seen any chief design officer with a lousy appearance ever before. It's a game of smoke and mirror. You always have that. Always have. In programming, it's much easier to say like, hey, the code work, this one doesn't work. In design, it's my way more subjective. So selling, to be able to sell oneself is always a skill that a designer needs. And the best job go to the people who can sell themselves.
And so you, I mean, you also mentioned before that there's sort of a, or I don't know if that's what you meant, but I think that's at least what that's at least my opinion about this whole, what's the difference between now and before AI arose, right? And I think there's this human component, and it might be substituted by AI at some point. But I think something related to something you mentioned earlier is when studying UI UX design, when studying marketing, there's sort of a psychology component to it, right? You have to understand psychology if you want to understand advertisement or design in general. So is this something that you have studied on a sort of technical, what do you call it? Have you had a technical approach to studying psychology also? And would you recommend that people do that? Or do you think it's not that important?
It depends. It really depends. So the pop science books, right? And then there are very much more like in-depth study. So one of the most famous design pattern of the modern world is the swiping pattern, and it was done by a guy who looked into a academic research paper about behaviors study among pigeons. Biologists actually study pigeons that were trained to get food from swiping area and then their satisfactions. So they look into that, and he designed the swiping area things, the uncertainty of like whether you get a match or not from that. So I'll say that just wonder, like follow your passion, follow your curiosity, get a hand on the books that you feel comfortable with having, and then you never know. Being curious about human is actually a good thing. And I bought a lot of books, right? But it's not all stick, because some writers are much better at convey their ideas than not the others. So I say that I think everybody gonna be benefited from studying psychology regardless, but don't be limited by how technical it could be, because some research paper could very, very dry. So go to therapists talking about humans. Reading marketing books actually have to. So like there are many ways to skin a cat. That's what you say. They say
many ways to skin a cat, right?
There are many ways to skin a cat. But I'm always fascinated by that story of Tinder swiping. It's come from like an academic paper.
Yeah.
So it shows that if you really, really look deep and enough, you have like something different. But the interesting thing now is actually they're actually both ways. TikTok actually come from like observing pure observations. So like don't look down on observations, because TikTok actually came about when the founder was on the train home and then saw the kids was actually like matching and seeing matching music to their movement on the trends, and then that's how he came up with TikToks. So don't look down on observation. So that's why when it came to a public translation, I always put my phone down and start and look at people. There's like you learn so much from observing people too, and a lot of time it's actually much faster way, because human training a lot. There's some aspect of us trains a lot over the times, and not everything gonna make it back to the academic paper, right? So if you want to do one project, one product, and then sometimes it came from like a moment of need that's very contemporary, very right now, right?
That's interesting what you're saying there. Sorry to interrupt you, but looking at as you're kind of explaining what makes a good designer, somebody that's observant of the world. Nothing that I mean, kind of seems obvious as you're saying that, but I wouldn't really necessarily think that, right? And the more I listen to you, I see that you got to become, I don't want to say that an expert, but very knowledgeable in human psychology and marketing. And marketing is basically psychology, right? And also in observing the world around you,
Yeah.
and the fact that the world is ever shifting, ever changing, and people are always evolving.
Yeah.
And so it takes a very curious personality, I guess, someone who's a student of the world around them to be a great designer. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and you need to work on like and I think a good thing to it's very good to have like that curiosity mindset, because you never know what's gonna might it, right? So somebody on Twitter make $1 million from like designing a headshot AI. So he couldn't find a place to take this profile photos. So he like, why don't I just do it? I trained the AI to produce me a perfect headshot, and then so I don't need a photographer anymore. So a good and one of the things, I think the most the hardest thing is in designing, and I'm still working on it, is the craft. Like because with all this tool, people lost their ability to produce like fine design, just like the nitty gritty to the moving pixel, right? So because so many things around us train us to instant result. How do you polish the pixels? How do you move a pixel? The craft, the attention to craft, the mindset to do craft. It's something that constantly that I ask myself, like, how do I go on that? Because we are living in in a pandemic of cheap dopamine simulations. Everything looks so easy. So if a designer can stand out by doing really good craft, they always have a jobs, right? They can sit down, they can work for a long hour, and they can work on the icon and all the details. They can always have a jobs. It will never go away. And actually, because of the AI, it's create a skill gap in the market for visual craft. So if you have craft, you can always have a jobs. Yeah.
I think you hit a point there. Alex and I had on another podcast. We talked about the anti-AI movement, where we didn't really talk about the what I'm going to express, but I think AI has made people very lazy, and if you're lazy and you're not truly passionate about what you're doing, you're not going to go down the rabbit hole and develop very, very deep skills in that particular craft. AI can only do so much, and I think you talked about building your craft, right? And a craft. When I think about becoming great at a craft, that's something that takes a decade, if not more. And if you're using AI to take the shortcut to get the instant, result of what AI can produce, you might be able to satisfy, somebody who isn't particular or isn't appreciative of quality work. But I don't think you're going to go far. And I think you're right that there's a skills gap, not only in design, but in many areas where somebody who is willing to put in the extra hours, weeks, months, years to get really, really, really good. Because AI, it cannot do everything. It cannot manipulate an image a certain way always, right? Even if you have a great prompt, right? And there's only certain things that can be produced where you can take it, what's exactly here, and then put it to pixel. If you have the skill sets to actually manipulate the pixel in a certain way.
Yeah. And sorry, I interrupted you.
No, go for it.
No, I just wanted to add, I think you're absolutely right. And I think, and one of my friends who's a mathematician, he was talking about AI at some point at a lecture, and he compared the rise of AI to the invention of the calculator, right? So the calculator for the mathematician is an analogy for what AI is to everybody now. So if you give a calculator to a small child who hasn't learned any math yet, they'll just go through life with a calculator and they'll never learn anything. If the calculator breaks, they'll be useless. But also, it'll just be like a crutch for them for their entire lives. Whereas if you give a calculator to an already trained mathematician, then it'll just be a tool that means that he doesn't have to waste his time on small issues now. Now he can use his brain for bigger things. And this is the same thing with AI. For the skilled programmer, designer, writer, whatever, this is just a tool that'll make you even more efficient, even faster, and allow you to leverage your skills. But for the untrained, for the lazy, for the uneducated, for the unambitious, this is just going to be a crutch. And at some point, technology is going to move on, and you're out of the game again. So so I agree absolutely. I mean, the best of the best are going to be the ones that have the most skill in the end. There's no doubt about it. I have one question. Do you think that what you do, or do you think that design work is mostly? I know it sounds kind of, you know, maybe a bit cheesy to put it that way, but do you think it's mostly a science, or do you think it's mostly an art form? Because I had a friend, I have a friend who's an industrial designer, right? And I have to admit that for a long time I didn't respect her work very much. Like I was like, you know, industrial design, interior design, all that stuff. You know, how hard can it be? And then I visited her when she was doing her master thesis on lighting, and she had she was designing a studio where she was calculating the angle of the light that hit another light beam and stuff like that. And apparently they were doing research on how it affected the brain waves of a human being to see when different types of light hit. You know, I don't understand it, but my point is, you know, for her it was basically math. And then I've heard others say that, you know, design is an art form, is like something you have an intuition about it, and you can just see when it's wrong, you can see when it's right. So what's it like for you? Is it a science, or is it an art form?
It's both. It's a marriage of both. It's a very interesting marriage of both. Because you definitely have the math. You do have the math. You do have the psychology. You do have the very rational part of it. You know, like this very much like part of design where you go into very exhausting, I would say exhausting calculation of like sample and statistics. You know, like a big company like Walmart, for example, would not move unless they have a very big research back then. But sometimes for some company, especially Apple under Steve Jobs leaderships, it's very much more like intuitive and artsy. So that's a question. That's a very interesting question, and I don't think that as long as humanity can continue to exist, that argument and debate over like math or science or intuition would never stop, because Apple becomes the biggest company in the world and then so profitable nowadays because Tim Cook was very methodical man, and you know, he applied all the supply chains and mathematics and science in managing a supply chain to it. But many say that when Steve Jobs died, and then that kind of intuitive leaderships, you know, like value and art forms, you know, the man study calligraphy and then using meditation to inform his product decisions, will die with the company. So I think it's going to be a very beautiful dance to the end of humanity. This question of like math and science or art, and what is art, you know, I mean, like that's gonna be a beautiful dance until the end of it. Like can I make the bananas, you know, tape the arts? Absolutely yes. You know, can you explain this?
You have any idea, Alex, that what Sandra's referring to, the art that just sold for like $6 million USD? Some guy
the banana, right? The banana. yeah, I saw that, and then he ate it afterwards, right? So this is it's an incredibly absurd world we live in. I think, but yeah, I mean, that's the problem with design, right? And you spoke about Apple. I mean, they also revolutionized advertisement. You know, the whole idea of I don't know much about the history of advertisement, but it's my impression that they did change something in the sense that they decided to, you know, just do a completely blank or simple background and then just put a product in the middle, you know, really simple form of advertisement. And I think this is going to be the curse of design forever, that people, just like I did before I visited my friend who was doing her project, they're going to underestimate how much brain power and knowledge and skill goes into doing something like this. And this is just, I mean, it's something that you're going to underestimate until you need to do it yourself, and you just figure out, yeah, you can do that, right? It's years or decades of experience that allows you to just, like you said, observe the world, and then just like the person who figured out to do the swiping, or you know, the psychologist who figured out to do the, you know, to put the like button into Facebook, right? These people are just people who they had decades of experience, and then one day they observed the world, and then they figured out something that was so simple that today we think, why didn't they think of that before? But yeah,
exactly. Or they just come, like or they don't need even like years of experience. Like, the stories of Snapchat. It's just because the guy needs a sex thing. He want to do sex thing, and then he want to do like messages that disappear because he want to sex in his college. Just is like a horny college guy. Like, so maybe you don't need years of experience, and that's the beauty of it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can have like kids, 14 years old kid doing like $1 million companies
Yeah.
in this market. You don't need it. That's the beauty of it. Like, and it's come down to the question of like executions. Like, like you need to be able to execute. Like a famous designer that I follow talking a lot about execution and craft. And yeah, so I think it just like you say, it's gonna be a very interesting question to the end of time.
How
Yeah.
do Vietnamese designers measure up to designers in competing markets like the Philippines, India, China, South America? I mean, are the skill levels, in your opinion, because you have your school, you meet with them all the time, and you're probably sometimes competing for the same projects as these other countries. How do you think our Vietnamese people? What are they? I mean, are they pretty competent? Are they good enough to compete for these opportunities?
Yeah, they certainly are. It's just a little bit different in the way they approach the war. I think it's very culturally. Logically, Vietnamese actually do much better. They are more tech savvy than the Philippines. But art-wise, Philippines, Indonesia, and India is better. I think India and Ukraine and Eastern European are very sweet spot for between like logical, and you need arty designer too, because it's art that move people. Like you can't have a good marketing campaign without good key visuals, or you need both. So often happen is, I think that if Vietnamese designer work on their visual craft, they would be much more appealing to the international market. So I think that's the more difficult part of hiring. Like, of course, you have like exception. You have like you have exception. You always have exception in the market. But I would say that in the VA world, or in the like remote world of designs, American, Eastern European is where you find a very sweet spot between art, craft, and analytics. Vietnam, a little bit more analytical. Still need to work on the craft side. So a dream team would be a dream team. Sometimes as a employer, you need to know where your team good at and outsource the rest, because sometimes it's actually sometimes it's really very hard to hire. Like, I think it's exceptionally hard to hire somebody with excellent visual chops and also product mindsets. Usually they are unicorn, and they can easily command like $100,000 a year salary if they are in the right place. And there are companies that just go for that kind of designer, but you don't have to. As an employer. I think the best way to describe is you had to take like a Lego builders, right? So you build like different skill set and stack on each other, and also the thing that doesn't make sense. So I was able to work on like very like visually demanding projects, because sometimes I outsource the visual craft to other designer, and then I did the blending and then the analytical and logical part. So knowing where your designer falls short and high for the rest, you can bring a contractor in, you can bring a illustrator in. You know what I mean? Of course, there's this like baseline of like you need to be able to do like an UI screen without problems. There's this baseline, right? So there's baseline to be satisfied. But I think if Vietnamese designer are more comfortable with exploring, so exploring and then without any like outcomes. So often like I always hire for designer who share a lot of stuff online. Like like if they keep constantly like designing stuff and they say it to the world, always exceptional style of people, like a good designer.
Oh, so people
because
who are constantly sharing their work online,
yeah,
showcasing. Okay.
yeah, because that means that because a lot of time the biggest part of designing is this creative like
Mm,
anxiety,
mm,
like how you sit down and then some people got it. It just they are too anxious to put out the work into a work. And that's why an important part of my day now is not about design. It's about like I sit down and I do the mental work. So I practice, I exercise, do the mental work to push away the creative nervousness and anxiety. And otherwise, you're gonna have like a designer block. It's almost like any other like creative things you do. You have block, and so you have to tell yourself, like part of being older is like you talk to yourself and then you say like, hey, I gotta figure this out. I know how to figure this out. And so a very good part of it. So this is why a lot of time you see the most prolific designer are like sporty guys, girls, sporty guy who did a lot of reps in the gyms because once you get out and push away that anxiety in the gyms, you can sit down with a clear mind and you can actually execute.
That's interesting. All right.
Yeah.
You said it's the advantage sometimes of getting older to talk to yourself. So if I'm walking around the street and I see somebody talking to themselves, they're probably a designer, maybe.
Maybe.
But that's
Maybe.
interesting though about what you just said. Jokes aside, about people who can go to the gym or participate in some kind of physical activity and through strenuous exercise remove any anxiety, they can go back and do better design. I never that wouldn't have thought I thought that working out actually is a great facilitator of design ideas. Interesting.
Yeah, you see, like, if you follow design Twitters, the two type of guy, like one is a very hunky, like like punky guys who push out this agency, or this guy who's skinny but always very athletic. I'm sure they walk a lot or they do a lot of things. Like, and then you see like a lot of us buying like a mixer, piano, a guitar, or bass, like like all this activity,
mm,
the design mind, because you can't design 8 hours per day. You
Sure.
can't.
mm.
Sure. So you have like you need creative outlet to bring back to you, and you need a community to, because we are a social creature. Yeah.
Speaking of community, Sandra. So let's talk a bit about your Facebook community. What motivated you to build this community? How did you grow to what was around 2,000 members, right? And what kind of value do you aim to provide to the members of that community?
3,000. It's actually around to 3,000, over 3,000 now.
3,000, yeah.
Yeah. It's it's actually started now as a COVID project. I was very bored during COVID, so I tweeted a lot. I posted a lot of Facebook update, and I talk a lot about design patterns, what I see around the world, what happened around the world, what company do well, what company didn't do well, and people love it. People love it, and it's just going from there. I hope that I think that I have a very good career. I think I have a decently good career despite somehow challenge. I got to travel the world. I got to see. I got to move to different countries. I got to see a lot of things because of design. And I think design is such a design programming is such a liberating career. Like we talk about a lot of tech volatile, tech being volatile, long hour. I get that. There's downside and mental health issues, but it's very like liberating career in the sense that you don't need a degree. You don't need a 4 years degree. You learn on the internet or from like boot camps, and you are good to go. You can have a very good life with this thing. You know what I mean? So it's such a liberating career in the sense of like you build things, you can build things now with programming, with AI is easier. You really can express yourself to the world, and I want people to see that, right? You have like internet builders who making $2,000 per month, $10,000 per month, $50,000 per month. It's life changing, and I get it. For me, it's like I wish I found out about this coding and indie hacking things earlier. I wish I could. You know, what I mean, I generally wish I found about it earlier. Because growing up, I always wanted to go to America for school, and but I was very lucky that I didn't get it. I ended up going to America for school on scholarships, but the alternative could be like a $200,000 debt for a degree that might not necessarily in school, like. And I think that a parent is the future. Kid don't really need to college. They come there, it's more like a social experience. But if they can find what they like to do, a parent is for somebody who a good mentor who give them space to grow and learn what to do. They're gonna become amazing people, right? 100% believe that building skill is still the skill of the futures. And with the internet, you have 10 billion people online now. With the internet now, you can make a living. It's pretty good. What I mean? So the question is like what you choose to build on. Like the most difficult part of the internet now is a mental health problem, not the skill problems. You can learn a skill within like a week, 3 months, but there's so many things like competing for your mental health. So protecting your mental health is an issue too, and that's one of the things that about career in tech too, because there's a lot of loneliness. There's a lot of there's a lot of gender imbalance too. Like you work in an office and you can't find your life partner. I'm actually one of few girls in tech. I hope to see more girls in tech. But
Yeah, me too.
What are your solutions for these mental health problems? How do you deal with them?
I'm still dealing with them. Actually, I have like a health problems that I'm still dealing with, and it's coming from mental health, and it's simple. I think the same old question: diet, exercise, screen times, social connections. I think it's a consistency. I think the most important thing is we are our biggest enemy, right? We always know somebody who did something bigger than us. Like I'm running in the circle of people who raised $70 million, $80 million for their startups. And I'm happy for them, but at the same time I push so much pressure on myself to be successful. Right. You know what I mean? And it's not right. It's like everybody have like their own journey, and that this like founder market fit, a company is an extension of the founder, basically, right? And not all venture gonna be like $1 million company, because if you want to raise $80 million, that's gonna have to be $1 billion company. So I think comparison is the biggest tip of choice, right? I think the things that I'm trying to do for myself now is try to learn every day a little bit about myself and the world. That's one thing, self-awareness. The second thing is very important, is the social component. So reaching out to friends and reaching out to people. I'm reading a very good books, and I'm highly recommend it. It's a book that about happiness, from a guy that interviewed like hundreds of people about like what makes a human happy for like the last decade. And like it's not our money that make us happy. It's our friends and our family make us happy and fulfilling. So
it's the very famous I think it's called the Easterlin paradox, right? That they try to test, do people become more happy if they make more money? And they saw that in the beginning, yes, people become more happy when they make more money until a certain level, and then it just basically flattens out. Then you don't become more happy, right? It's just, and it's approximately the level of wealth where you don't have to worry that much about paying your bills. Around that level, more money doesn't make you more maybe marginally more happy, but not anything worth not any significant results found after that level. So it's pretty interesting. So I think you're absolutely right. I think social connections is the rule, right? And you also mentioned comparison. I mean, have you cut out social media, or is that something you would recommend?
I highly recommend stay away from mainstream news.
From mainstream news, okay.
I highly recommend to, because the news actually are a friend to make you unhappy. You don't get a realistic version of the world by reading news, and that's one of the habits I'm trying to curb. This is very cheap dopamine. Yeah, I actually turned my phone to grayscale. I just turned my phone to grayscale this week.
Don't worry, we edit that out.
Yeah, that's my dad. You know,
Someone say hi.
Yeah, I just put my phone in grayscale because and sometimes I question, funny you say, as this, sometimes I have a very I actually have a very nihilistic view sometimes over UI UX and career, because we make people addicted to a screen that they don't need. So yeah, you know what I mean? And I try to avoid that by not doing consumer apps anymore. I no longer do trading crypto trading apps anymore, like gaming apps and gambling apps anymore, because I feel like it makes people addicted to things that they don't need. That's why I'm much more into designing enterprise solution than consumer apps, because looking around now, we have a screen pandemics.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. So, but again, a bakery would poison people and diabetes if they pay too much sugar thing. So,
yeah,
you can't win, right? So you try to balance your life by doing a little bit of good. Yeah.
So is that one of the initial requirements if you want to be a UI UX designer? Make sure you don't have too big of a conscience, because it will limit the area that you want to focus in. But I agree. Alex and I are both parents of young children. Mine a little older, and a big topic around my house often is the future dangers we see with addiction to screens, and we try to limit as much as we can. Even if I let my son watch something online, it's got to be educational. It just can't be stuff just to occupy him. Which I think, if you're not careful, you're just feeding a future addiction. An addiction that his father already has and is dealing with. So
right, for sure.
But I think it's a very honest approach that you have there, Sandra, to your own line of work. And I think the way to deal with it is probably just like you do, to say, okay, there's something that some types of businesses that I'm simply not going to support, and whether that's as a consumer or whether it's as a supplier or a contractor. I'm not gonna as an investor invest in the tobacco industry. I'm not going to do any contract collaboration with gambling firms. I mean, that's a way to deal with it, right? Sort of, what do you call it? Pick out the types of industries that are most evil or immoral, or however you wanna put it, and then don't support them.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, the money was amazing, right? The money was amazing. And part of being a designer is that you still had to learn how to make people addicted, because that's how you got the money. You got profit. Maybe the solution is in a different way. I don't know, how people make sugar, and I remember that's the family who make Kit Kat is actually one of the biggest charity in the UK. UK.
Kit Kat the candy, right?
Yeah, Kit Kat the candy. Yeah. They actually one of the big. They was one of the big charity donor in the UK, and I guess you cannot always win. You cannot always win, and then it's I think it's just easier on yourself when you're first starting out and you do all this kind of thing. It's until you have a choice. Yeah. I don't know. I don't. Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
No.
So actually, I just have one last question. I think we're slowly running out of time, and I don't know if you have any more questions, Anne. But my last question, again, for the sake of the listeners, would be, what would be your sort of number one piece of advice for young Vietnamese talent aspiring to work remotely within the UI UX design field?
I think actually the most important thing is find your community, because you are an average of 5% you spend your time with, and remote work is actually could be a very lonely career. It's very freedom, it's very liberating, but it could be a very lonely. So it's better when you do it with somebody. It's actually much better when you do it with somebody, and because probably wait for a few years before you enter the remote career, because as a young designer, you learn the best from being in the office and then having somebody mentor you. A lot of young designers want to work remotely straight right away, and I say, yeah, wait for 1 or 2 years. At least 1 year. Try to get in office job first, if you can, because there's so much more to design than just design. You need to learn how to communicate with shareholder, stakeholders. You need to learn how to believe in yourself, even when a lot of times your design solution do not stick. How to build rapports, how to build trust within the team. Probably learn to work with other people first, and then a remote career could be follow. Because in the remote work, a lot of times remote work doesn't work out because people do not communicate, and people do not have that kind of belonging and sense of connection. And without that, a lot of people say that, oh, we don't need that, we need remote work. But without sense of belonging, sense of community or trust, it's very hard to build any big things, right? Or difficult things, how do you fail? And when you fail, the first thing, do you blame your teammates, or do you rationalize it, right? And usually when you first work, the first 2 or 3 years of your career, you do not know how to build relationship yet. So go into an office first, build relationships, and then you can do remote work.
Does your community have in real life meetups often? You talked about the importance of working to the importance of building relationships, and the problem with loneliness. If you wanted to pursue a remote career. So you're based in Hanoi, so you guys have occasional meetups where people can connect and build these connections with other designers?
Yeah. So I'm going to one hosted by other people in this weekend. But yes, it's within the plan in the future that we're gonna have more in real life meetup. To build a set of communities and everything. I know I'm making an excuse now, but Hanoi is a bit hard to do meetup because it's a bit cut down. But I'm very hopeful with all the train and metro system coming up. It's gonna be easier for people to move around. And then I'm a big fan of the new metro system in Hanoi. I know it's probably already a thing in Copenhagen, but the new metro system is a large center in the city of 11 million people in Hanoi, because during the peak hour, it's just impossible to move around here. So
consider having something in Saigon too, because most of our community members are based there, and so you should. And if not be there personally yourself, maybe find a collaborator in Saigon that can help coordinate and make sure that things go well. I think if you could build it locally in Saigon, test it out, maybe have a couple of mixers where people in the community can connect. I think would be really good for what you're doing.
For sure. Mixer is really an idea. I should try it. It's very untraditional yet, but I think mixer is a brilliant idea. I should definitely try it. Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool.
We're having the show, not show notes, but the podcast notes where people can find you.
Yeah.
Maybe you can also tell us, share to the audience now, where do you hang out most online, and where people can connect with you if they want to?
Probably LinkedIn. LinkedIn is best way. So Sandra Vu. So Sandra VU are on LinkedIn, and you search on me, and then you're gonna find it. I'm around the most on LinkedIn. That's it. Yeah. And we actually have a student who studying with us from Finland and Sweden, so Vietnamese. So I'm excited if I'm gonna see more students coming from Scandinavia, because it's very good programs, and the tech industry is still going up despite the volatility. It's still going up, and there's more need for more designers. So if they can study a school in Vietnam and then they do it in Scandinavia, that would be amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So I think we're running out of time now. So Sandra, as Anlam just said, we'll share everything we can, as many details as we can about you and your community in the description for this podcast, and thank you so much for taking an hour and a half or something out of your day to have this conversation with us. Great conversation and a lot of interesting information. I hope the viewers will think as well. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Sandra, have a great day and enjoy the rest of the week. And hopefully some people in the community will find what you're doing interesting and reach out to you directly. That's my hope.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be amazing. That would be my pleasure. Yeah.
All right, cool.
Thank you.
So you guys take care, right? See you around and yeah, keep in touch.
Yeah. Keep in touch.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.